New developments this morning after that massive immigration raid in Georgia. The U.S. and South Korea have struck a deal to release hundreds of detained workers. Seoul says more than 300 South Korean nationals detained last week in a federal raid at Hyundai's new electric vehicle plant will be put on a charter flight home once paperwork clears. They made up the bulk of 475 people swept up when federal agents stormed the under construction site, a $7.6 billion project slated to produce EV batteries and create thousands of jobs. Asked about the raid, President Trump said America still needs foreign expertise to help train workers in critical industries.
It's a battery factory in that case, as I'm told. And, you know, when they're building batteries, if you don't have people in this country right now that know about batteries, maybe we should help them along and let some people come in and train our people to do, complex things, whether it's battery manufacturing or computer manufacturing or building ships. So we're going to look at that whole situation.
Meantime, South Korea's foreign minister is heading to Washington today for talks, including whether all detained workers could be sent back on a voluntary basis.
Kenya's economic lifeline may soon be cut. The African Growth and Opportunity Act is set to expire on September 30th, ending a key duty-free trade agreement with the U.S. The deal has been a game-changer, anchoring billions of shillings in investment, sustaining 66,000 apparel jobs, and supporting nearly 660,000 Kenyans who rely on the apparel sector for their livelihoods. Without the act, Kenya loses its competitive edge against Bangladesh, Vietnam, and Egypt, sending its trade minister to Washington to fight for an extension. But time is scarce, and active sustained diplomacy is crucial. If the AGOA isn't renewed, Kenya may pivot fast. A Kenya-US free trade agreement could offer the predictability investors crave and secure Kenya's foothold in global supply chains. Beyond textiles, experts say Kenya's future lies in diversification.
When kids click play on YouTube videos, they may be watching Disney and Disney may be watching them. Disney is paying a $10 million fine after federal regulators found the company failed to protect children's personal information online. The Federal Trade Commission says Disney violated the Children's Online Privacy Protection Rule by collecting personal data from child-based videos without proper safeguards. The rule requires companies to get parental consent before collecting information from children under 13. It also directs the companies to limit online features like comments and targeted ads on child-directed content. The Justice Department filed a complaint saying Disney failed to label some YouTube videos as made for kids, leaving data collecting features active. Under the settlement, Disney will pay $10 million, notify parents, obtain consent before collecting data, and check whether YouTube videos should be marked for kids. Disney says only a small portion of its content is involved and acknowledges labeling errors, which led to the settlement. The complaint cites examples from Pixar, Disney Plus, and Disney Animation, including clips from Frozen, Moana, Cars, and Mickey Mouse, where videos were improperly marked. The FTC says YouTube warned Disney as early as 2020, but the company did not fully fix a problem.
Potential homebuyers are canceling their purchase agreements at a record rate, according to Redfin, with their July 2025 data showing more than 15% of homes that were under contract saw the buyer back out. Redfin attributes the record high to higher home prices, higher mortgage rates, and economic uncertainty. Buyers have more options and can pull their offer for several reasons. In San Antonio, Texas, 22.7% of people who agreed to buy a home in July ended up canceling their contracts. That's nearly 1 in 4 deals that fell through. Other cities with high cancellation rates were Fort Lauderdale, Jacksonville, Atlanta, and Tampa. Florida and Texas have seen a large supply of new homes, which gives buyers more options and flexibility. As a result, Redfin says some buyers feel comfortable canceling deals if they think they can find a better home. Now, in Florida specifically, buyers are also walking away due to fears about natural disasters, like hurricanes, and rising costs for home insurance and HOA fees, which make owning a home more expensive. In places like Nassau County, New York, and Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, very few homebuyers canceled their purchase agreements, as low as 5.1% in Nassau. Now, these areas had the lowest rates of canceled home deals among the cities Redfin analyzed. The housing market is beginning to change. Mortgage rates are decreasing, which might encourage more buyers to re-enter the market. The Fed is expected to announce a rate cut in mid-September. Chen Zhao, head of economics research at Redfin, says we're already seeing those decreased rates.
So the Fed is widely expected to cut their policy rate on September 17th when they meet. That rate cut has largely been priced in already. So that means that when they make that cut, mortgage rates won't fall any further unless if they signal even, faster or more rate cuts in the future compared to what markets have priced in. But markets are expecting several cuts this year and several cuts next year already. But that expectation of these cuts that are coming is what has allowed mortgage rates to drop a little bit already from that 6.8 range down to about 6.5 right now. So it's not a ton of relief for home buyers, but it is, meaningful relief.
At the same time, fewer homes could be for sale, which could make buyers feel more pressure to act quickly before options run out. Now, together, these shifts could lead to more competition and fewer canceled deals.
Gunshots ring out at a bus stop in the remote neighborhood of occupied East Jerusalem. Police say 2 Palestinian attackers from the West Bank arrived by car and opened fire on commuters. Several people were killed and more than a dozen injured.
When we arrived at the scene, we still heard shooting. We couldn't know exactly what was going on.
We did assist with, transporting some of the patients that were severely wounded to the nearby hospitals. And you have the Zaka team on scene as well, who is taking care, ensuring the proper respect for the patients that unfortunately didn't make it.
Authorities say a security officer and a civilian responded quickly, returned fire, and killed the attackers. Later, the Israeli Prime Minister arrived on the scene.
We are now in pursuit, surrounding the villages from which the murderers came, and we will get to everyone who assisted them and everyone who sent them, and we will act with even harsher measures.
Israeli forces have been deployed in nearby West Bank villages as part of searches for potential accomplices and security operations following the attack. Hamas praised the shooting as a natural response to Israel's actions, but did not claim responsibility. This attack is one of the deadliest in Jerusalem since the Gaza war began nearly 2 years ago.
Chinese leader Xi Jinping and North Korea's Kim Jong-un have pledged to deepen strategic coordination in their first formal summit in 6 years. Xi met Kim at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing Thursday and hosted him for tea and dinner afterwards, according to Chinese state media. The summit could hint at a restoration of ties between the two states after they grew more distant in recent years. The readout from the meeting did not mention the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula as previous ones have. North Korea's nuclear weapons program has transformed Pyongyang into the most heavily sanctioned state in the world. However, Russia and to a lesser extent China have become less openly critical of that program in recent years as tensions with Western powers have risen. In 2022, China and Russia for the first time vetoed a US-led resolution at the UN Security Council calling for additional sanctions on North Korea over its renewed ballistic missile launches.
They did tremendous disservice to this country, including allowing 25 million people from jails, from prisons, from mental institutions, drug dealers, all over the world. They were entered our country from jails. The prison population of Venezuela was emptied out into our country. And that's what we're doing now. I spend so much of our time, Tom Holman and the people that have worked on this so hard. You know, Kristi Noem, all of them, they've worked on it so hard. It's like an unforced error. And to allow people into a country who are truly, there are evil people. We're all people of religion, but there are evil people, and we have to confront that. I just give my love and hope to the family of the young woman who was stabbed this morning or last night in Charlotte by a madman, a lunatic, just got up and started. It's right on the tape. Not really watchable because it's so horrible, but just viciously stabbed. She's just sitting there. So they're evil people. We have to be able to handle that. If we don't handle that, we don't have a country.
Anything else on mass transit? Okay, go ahead.
First LA, DC, Chicago. Is there concern, and what might you do should the president make Philadelphia and Pennsylvania a target next?
I think what the president's doing is wrong. I think what the president's doing injects chaos in communities, and I can tell you that we are prepared should he decide to try that here in Philly.
What does that mean?
I'm not going to get into the specifics. I can tell you we are prepared. And let me round it out. It's not just Philly. We're prepared should they try to deploy the National Guard against my will in any community across Pennsylvania.
Last question. Thanks.
Great. Good, cool.
Governor, another thing you talked about during the press conference earlier was about preparation.
The trade tug-of-war between the United States and China is escalating again. Chinese exports to the U.S. dropped 33% in August, hitting their lowest level in 6 months. Globally, China exports actually ticked up by about 4.5%, but that was their slowest growth since February. The drop to the U.S. comes as Washington and Beijing extended their tariff truce into November, giving negotiators more time. Right now, President Trump's tariffs on Chinese goods average nearly 58%. Beijing has retaliated with about 33% on U.S. products. And Donald Trump is threatening to go even further, warning he could impose a 200% tariff if China cuts exports of rare earth magnets, essential for cars, electronics, and renewable energy. With U.S. demand shrinking and pressure mounting, China is pivoting to other markets, including the European Union, Southeast Asia, and Africa.
France has just made another major move here, warning that their hospitals have been advised to prepare for large-scale war within the next 6 months. This is from a government letter that was leaked to the media, which they're not denying, and they're actually saying is valid. They're saying that this states that between 10 and 50,000 people are expected to be seen in hospitals and that they must prepare for this. They're talking about wounded soldiers from across Europe. They're stating in this that France is going to act like a rear base. It outlines how the hospitals would need to prepare for up to 50,000 beds allocated to wounded civilians and military personnel every month. This is the same France that kicked out manuals here earlier this year, preparing people for this type of event, telling them to start taking the measures and using precautions here to start stocking up and getting ready for some sort of big showdown. They say that all of this, what they're doing, is just like any other part of preparation. So this is very real. They're saying just like stockpiling medicines and other material, that this here is something that they have to do. They're also talking, the leadership is talking about how they should move to putting some of these facilities at the ports. So any new hospitals that get built in France and maybe even other regions will be at a port area. That way, if boats come in with wounded soldiers, they can be taken straight into the hospitals. They are preparing, and this is ramping up. And on the other side of the coin, Russia saying that everything that they're trying to pull off with Ukraine is not going to work at this point. The one thing that they've been against this whole time is any NATO troops gathering inside of Ukraine or making Ukraine a member of NATO, which means that all these other countries can come in, and that would spark big war. They've warned of this, and now they seem, the West and Europe seem to be trying to ignore this, acting like with everything that they say, there needs to be some kind of contingent of soldiers in there. Russia saying even if they're there as peacekeepers, it doesn't matter. They are legitimate targets. This is still going back and forth. Russia's big oil fields just got struck again by drones. And at this point, it really seems like something big is going to get served up here, one way or another. Zelensky refusing to go to Moscow to meet with Putin to talk, saying that Putin has to come to Kiev. And I don't think they trust that. Either way it goes, this is where it's at, and it may not end until a big one is dropped here. Somewhere, somehow in this region, they're going to get hit with a big nuke. This has been telegraphed for almost a decade, especially from the Chinese and Chinese rover pick, showing this scenario in this region. So it seems like it's getting closer and closer, even though there was talks of peace, potential peace and all this stuff, until it is put into concrete. Anything is possible, and it seems like on the world stage, this is what they want anyway. Both sides make a ton of money off of war. And war is a racket through and through. Nonetheless, innocent people die in these events, and they don't seem to care. But we're on the cusp of something big popping off in this area. Something has to give with Ukraine, and it very well could be the linchpin here to big war. Because Europe, Germany, France, as you can see, they're not backing down. They want this inevitably. So it seems something bigger is on the horizon.
Shalom, giving all praises, honor, and glory to our power, Yahweh. Bahasham Yahweh Shah, Bahasham Chakwadash, the honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect of the tabernacles of David, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, wherever you may be, to you I say Shalom, Asherah, Shalom. All right, it's going to be brief, world news with commentary. A few things to talk about. We're just going to hit on this particular point here. I guess I'll mention one of them because I'll be playing that clip after the next clip that comes after this little short session here, which is about Venezuela moving 25,000 troops. You know what's been happening between America and Venezuela. Things are gearing up with them. China, which I'm not saying this is what's happening here, but China is sending a medical ship, all right, near some controversial waters. And I'm not saying this is true. I'm just saying I was thinking like, well, what if it's not a medical ship? What if they're dressing up as a medical ship, but really they got some spies up there? Well, you know, this is a random thought. Not saying that's what's happening there, but you know. But on this topic here, because this has been the big thing right here, the federalizing DC. Okay, Caesar here, talking big ish. Okay, I'm talking about, we saved LA. We could do the same thing in Chicago and DC and LA and blah, blah, blah. We saved LA. You're talking this big ish like, he does, because this guy he's a windbag. He likes to hear himself talk. He likes to hear the claps of the people. He likes to be seen, likes to be heard. And I find him hilarious, though. A lot of times I find myself laughing at Trump because this guy's a clown, man. But nonetheless, in realistic situations, though, he's moving these troops, man. And Thawadi Habashon Shah, that the Lord has him doing these things. Proverbs 21:1. The king's heart is in the hands of the Lord, and as a river of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. Now, the ultimate kings are the bankers, all right? But Trump, or any president for that matter, but he's the one right now in particular, all right? Trump is the king of Babylon because he's set up as that puppet for everybody to look at, okay? And so him talking about Chicago, he was talking very heavily about Chicago. And he needs to send them to Chicago. Send them to O Block. Send them to O Block. After O Block's been on TV a couple times. All right. Talked about and all this kind of, this gang culture violence and stuff like that. Well, send them to O Block, man. Because that's what they need. Okay. If they'll go and harass their own people, let's see if they'll do it with these troops who are trained, armed, ready, and hate the niggers, okay? Because they're already jacking up the Northern Kingdom, okay? And then, as the prophets have been prophesying from the apostles on down, they're coming after the Southern Kingdom next, all right? The 2/3 it is, okay? So I want to read this real quick, and I'll get one more, and we'll close it on off. Like I said, I want it to be short. So 2 Ezra 15:14, woe, meaning destruction to the world and them that dwell therein. For the sword and their destruction draw nigh, is close, okay? We just smell the chaos. We can smell the martial law. We can smell the draconian measures. We can smell the lockdowns. We can smell the curfews. We can just smell the chaos, man. It's really brewing, okay? And one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. So if they say, okay, oh, we got this, we got that, we got switches, okay, well, Jay got a lot of stuff, okay? But, all right, you got it. We got high hopes for you, and we're going to see. Once again, these men are angry. They're trained, they hate you, and they're saying that this is our country, which is why they are the troops, right? Okay? And so Trump sends them in and gives them, and I keep mentioning this as of late, because I forget all the names of these different bills and stuff like that, but the authorizing of lethal force and drones against American citizens, okay? And the reason why I mention that is the next scripture I'm going to get after I finish reading this. So let me finish this real quick. So it says, one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another, they shall not regard their kings nor princes. So they're saying that we're going to fight back. We're going to see how much they're going to fight back, or how long they're going to fight back if they do. Because they talk tough now, and they act tough, when they're oppressing their own people in the neighborhood, in the same life and situation that they're in. But let's see what happens when the true enemy comes, okay? Let's see what happens when someone can meet you at your level of violence, okay? And actually exceed your level of violence. Let's see what Jacob's going to do when he finally rolls up into Chicago. So it says that they should not regard their kings nor princes. All right, they're not going to listen to President Trump. They're not going to listen to the army. They're going to listen to the local governors and stuff like that. So they're going to just take matters to their own hand and fight back. All right, we'll see. And the course of their actions shall stand in their power. Okay, and overall, it's going to bring, like we're reading here, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. Because they're going to have curfews, they're going to have lockdowns, they're going to have checkpoints, they're going to have all kinds of things, man. Okay. And at some point in Jacob's trouble, it's going to get so bad, they're going to bring out the robots, the robot dogs, the actual robots. Drones are going to be flying around, all kinds of surveillance, checkpoints, this, that, and the third thing, curfews, all kinds of things are going to be going on. And even more things are going to amp up, okay? So we want to see how far Jake is going to take this, okay? Actually, I don't even know that scripture, but that's a good scripture. Let me actually go over and make another verse. Like I said, I want to make it just quick, fast, hit the point. But because at some point, this is all prophesied anyways. The Lord's going to let them loose. Let me see if I can find a verse. Yep. Judah 49. Genesis 49 and 9. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art going up. He stooped down, he couched as a lion. Okay? And that's what happened. Our people have been so long here in Babylon the Great, under the curses, under this spell of Babylon's wine, under the idea that you're black culture, black music, black this, black that. All right. And I'm speaking of the whole Southern Kingdom, not just the so-called Negroes. Speaking of Judah, Benjamin, Levi, because we've been talking a lot about the Northern Kingdom. We're directing, this one particularly to the Southern Kingdom. Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, so-called Negroes, West Indians, and Haitians. All right. So, and you probably got some like Reubenites mixed up with them too, because Reuben be looking just like Judah. You don't even know the difference. Okay, they look just alike, and they were hired. Actually, we go back to the slavery days. Judah was hiring out with Reuben. Okay, they helped Reuben out. With their skill sets. Okay, they fought in the ranks. Okay, they hid amongst the people. They married and intermarried with the women, because they were brothers anyways. Okay, Judah and Reuben, all part of the 12 tribes of Israel. But that's besides the point. But our people have been here so long, and the scriptures say that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Okay, so this culture, this lifestyle, which is really picked up by falling behind Esau, Edom. Okay, our people are lost. Okay, and it's come to this point where eventually the Lord is going to let the 2/3 loose on Esau, and vice versa, Esau back on the 2/3. Okay, and the devil's going to come down with that great wrath. That's when he's going to double up on Jake. Jake thinks he's going to beat Esau with violence. He's going to double up on him. It says he stooped down, he couched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? Okay, Yahweh Shema Shai is going to allow the 2/3 to wild out. If that's what he wants to do, that's what he allows them to do. He's going to allow them to wild out. And Jake's going to double wild on them, okay? Because the leaks will get their way, because that's part of the Lord's prophecy. But they're not going to fully overcome, because the victory is written for the remnant of the nation of Israel, not for Esau, Edom, okay? So I just want to hit that little, because, I mean, we see these things happening, man. We're watching it roll out, okay? We're watching the troops go everywhere. They're going to federalize all the states eventually, okay? And he keeps talking big about New York, Chicago, L.A., obviously, he's already proud about D.C. Every now and then, they might mention Florida. I'm not saying he's mentioned it as of late. But yeah, I mean, in other places, all the major states. And then they're going to hit those medium level states probably, and hit the minor ones later. Okay? Because those are the key things there. All right? So, I mean, it is what it is. And we see these things happening because we're watching these things according to the prophecies of the book. So we're going to finish off the rest of the news, Lord willing. You were edified today. And that's what I'm going to say, Shalom.
You try and reason with people like in Chicago with the governor and the mayor. You try and reason with them, and it's like you're talking to a wall. It's just doesn't. I assume it's just a political ideology. They're not stupid people. Must be an ideology that's just buried in their head, and you can't do a damn thing about it. And we'd love to go into Chicago and straighten it out. Washington, D.C., you'll be happy to know, is a free and safe zone. It's so safe right now. The National Guard working with the police, working with the mayor. The mayor has, that's not her ideology, and now I think it maybe is her ideology. She's taking a lot of heat, too, from the radical left. They don't like that she's allowing it. But look, she's going to either allow it or we'll just do it because, it's just, but she understands that. She understands that. We could do the same thing in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. We did it. We saved Los Angeles. We saved Los Angeles, Dan. You know that. Los Angeles was a mess. We sent our troops right in at the beginning and we killed it. And it was nasty, but we killed it immediately. And I don't know why Chicago isn't calling us saying, please give us help. When you have, over just a short period of time, 50 murders and hundreds of people shot, and then you have a governor that stands up and says how crime is just fine. It's really crazy. But we're bringing back law and order to our country.
China's People's Liberation Army Navy is sending a ship to America's doorstep. It's not a warship, but a medical one. Still, the craft is likely to ruffle some feathers while on its healing mission. Chinese naval ship Silk Road Ark is on its way to the Caribbean as part of the country's Mission Harmony 2025. Since 2010, China conducted 11 Mission Harmony exercises, which Beijing says are designed to, quote, strengthen cooperation between China and relevant countries, offer more public safety resources, and further advance concepts of a community with a shared future for mankind. Mission Harmony 2025 will see the Silk Road Arc visit around a dozen countries, including Mexico, Jamaica, Brazil, Peru, Chile, and others to provide humanitarian medical services. Commissioned in August of 2024, the Silk Road Arc is China's second domestically designed and developed ocean-faring hospital ship, and it's bigger than the last. It displaces more than 10,000 metric tons and has room on board for 300 patients. Patients receive their care in one or more of the 14 clinical departments and 7 auxiliary diagnostic units on board the Silk Road Arc. Those resources mean the ship's medical crew can perform 60 different medical procedures, including general surgery, orthopedics, obstetrics and gynecology, ophthalmology, and others. So why would anyone be upset with China for sending a medical ship on a humanitarian mission? It's about influence. For decades, the Caribbean Sea, as well as South and Central America, were seen as squarely within the United States' sphere of influence. But times change, and the People's Republic of China is making it a priority to expand its own sphere of influence, which has impacts on the way America conducts its trade and diplomacy. Things are especially tense right now in the Caribbean, as the United States is currently fighting cartels in the region, cartels which were recently designated as narco-terrorist organizations. So the presence of a ship from the Chinese Navy, whether on a medical mission or not, is going to raise eyebrows and demand a little more scrutiny. The same is true when the United States sends its 2 floating hospitals, the USNS Mercy and USNS Comfort, on humanitarian missions in regions near adversarial waters. Venezuela is sending 25,000 troops to its borders and coastlines in what officials call a need to combat drug trafficking. The move comes amid increased U.S. anti-narcotics enforcement in the same areas of the Caribbean. Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino said the force expands earlier deployments to 2 states that border Colombia. He laid out operations in the mountains to detect coca cultivation and along rivers to intercept smugglers. Reinforcements are also headed to areas Caracas calls drug trafficking routes. The timing is important. The U.S. is expanding its presence in the Caribbean. President Donald Trump ordered 10 F-35 jets to Puerto Rico, on top of 8 U.S. warships and 4,500 sailors and Marines already in the region. Washington argues the buildup is aimed at narcotics networks it links to Nicolas Maduro's government. Justice Department indicted Maduro and top officials on drug charges, offering up to $50 million for his capture and $15 million for Padrino's. Tensions between Caracas and D.C. are high. Earlier this month, a U.S. missile strike sank a boat believed to be from Venezuela, killing 11 people the White House says were traffickers. A couple of days later, Venezuelan fighter jets flew close to a U.S. destroyer in what was described as a provocative maneuver. Trump warned if Venezuelan aircraft threaten American forces again, they'll be shot down. Maduro accuses Washington of using drugs as a pretext for regime change, saying the U.S., quote, murdered 11 fathers of families. Human rights groups have also criticized the strike, warning of civilian risks. Colombia says it's worried about instability on its border, and Caribbean nations are questioning how far U.S. operations could extend. Analysts warn the danger of escalation rises if both militaries keep building up without talking.